Okay, you guys, today we have a very special guest in the house. It is Charlie Rock LD's sister. First, I want to say my deepest condolences for your loss. I know there are a lot of different narratives out there about his death. Um, you've gotten the autopsy back. Can you share the results with us?
He had a massive heart attack. It was due to his high cholesterol. He was like a ticking time bomb where his arteries were closing and it didn't pump enough blood to the heart. He died of a massive heart attack.
Okay, and so there were no traces of any drugs found in his system.
No, none whatsoever. None.
So when you hear people say, "Oh, he died because he was a dope fiend, he must have relapsed," or those type of things, can you share like those emotions that you feel when you hear that?
Okay, I feel hurt because he's been clean for many years, and that was one of the promises that he made to me, to stay clean. And we are three sisters total, and I was the closest to him. I was his everything. And no, his only bad habit was smoking and coffee. That was it.
Right. We know that Charlie definitely loved his putelo and smoking, of course, and those two things, they definitely had an effect on his health as well that led
Yes, he
to
did.
his heart attack.
Yes, he was a chronic diabetic. He was taking insulin, but he never checked his blood. I don't know why would you take insulin if you don't check your blood.
Okay, and he was living far away from you, so you could only do so much, right? Especially because
Yeah.
Charlie, is his own person, was his own person, and he was supposed to be taking care of himself. Um,
Right. And I did not want him to come back to New York, and that was the second promise he made to me. So I did all the visiting.
and so many people have tried to tarnish Charlie's name, from saying that he was still getting high and all these things like that. From what you know, Charlie was living with Prosperity House and he was still clean. I know Karen Tyson said that he had been clean for 5 years.
Yeah, it's been longer than that. Um, and he did a lot of volunteer. They did a lot of testing randomly. Karen was no joke. She sent her husband in there and watched them do the drug tests.
Okay, so
It
there was
wasn't.
no way that he could have cheated or anything like
No,
that.
no, no.
Can we go ahead and talk about um how were you notified about the details when Charlie passed away? Were you notified immediately or how long after?
Okay, it was the day before my birthday, and they were all gonna come over to my house. We picked up my sister from the airport. I have a sister that lives in Seattle and one that lives in Orlando, Florida. I went shopping with the one we picked up first, the youngest, and the phone kept ringing. So when I picked it up, I was notified by Karen, and Karen was hysterical. She goes, "Jocelyn." And I said, "Yes." I was outside in the street. She said, "Charlie had a heart attack." So I said, "Is he okay?" And she said, "No, he passed." She said they worked on him for about 45 minutes. She said they worked on him for 45 minutes and they couldn't bring him back. And she said they were waiting for the coroner to come. And I was outside in the street, so I started screaming. And my sister, too. He always told me, "Don't leave me, Jocelyn." And he left me. He left me instead of me leaving him. He promised he would not leave me. So I went crazy. My husband picked us up. And it was like a nightmare after that.
Um, I'm so sorry, Jocelyn. Yeah, I know it's. I know for the fans, they were heartbroken when they found out. I believe I found out a few hours after, as somebody had told me that was saying that they were a distant family member of Charlie's, and I couldn't believe it either. Like I immediately started to cry and break down. You know, Charlie and I had a great friendship, and even though,
He was a
yeah,
person.
he was a I could see that
He was down to earth.
I could see that he had his struggles just like all of us do, but deep in his heart, in his core, that he was genuinely a good person. And you know, we would have great conversations, and he told me things that, you know, I would never divulge or anything. And I tried to help him with his YouTube, and you know, I really cherished the time that I did have with him, even though it was a short period of time. um I just couldn't believe it. You know, I woke up the next day and I was hoping that it was going to be
It was
negative, that
a joke. It was a trick. It was
right,
a game.
exactly. And when it got verified, and I just, and it just was, well, I was in disbelief, you know. um I can't imagine the emotions that you and the family were feeling the following day when you woke up and you realized that it wasn't a joke, it was true. How much older are you than Charlie?
I'm 8 years older than Charlie.
How close were you to Charlie growing up? Like, what was that relationship like growing up?
It's always been close. My mother raised us together. My mom was a single mom. And we are very close. When my mom passed early also, she left me in charge of him. So I,
And because in our conversation previously, you had told me that, you know, he was like a son to you, like you took care of him, so it was that kind of relationship.
I only have one son. And losing Charlie is my second son. And I didn't lose a brother. I lost a son.
And so you guys had the same parents on both sides, right? And I remember when I interviewed him, he said that he was raised by your mom. It seemed like he didn't have much of a relationship with his father, your guys' father. Uh, is the father still alive? Your father still alive? No, he's not.
Well, I'm sorry. Charlie's father was separate. We
Same.
had the
Oh,
same
okay.
mother and father. Charlie's father is
Deceased. Okay.
deceased.
And so you guys had different fathers. Okay.
Yes. All except Charlie, yes.
Do you know what was the cause of him not having a relationship with his father growing up?
He was always in jail since he was I would say he went in when he was 18. And his dad didn't come around much. Not much at all.
You ended up not having a service for Charlie,
No.
and yeah, and what was the reason behind that?
Well, we always said we wanted to get cremated. He didn't want a viewing because he kept saying that he's no clown for people to come and view him. And um, it was just cremation and a family service. We're all we have. We don't have any cousins or anything. This is all. My two sisters and my one brother. This is it. We only have each other. He does have a daughter.
And he have a relationship with his daughter?
Yes, she did, but Charlie is a very strong person. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, and she loved him. But at this time, before he passed, he must have called her like 10 times, and they were, father and son. She was being stubborn, and he's stubborn, and it was very hard for her as well.
Charlie was on record saying that he had turned to drugs when your mother had passed away and he was locked up, right? Um, did you guys ever have conversations about his substance abuse, about that time period for him?
No, I didn't know. We didn't know that he was on drugs.
So there was no signs or anything like that at that time.
No.
When did you guys find out that he was suffering from addiction?
It wasn't. I always covered Charlie up. So I never told my sisters or brother. So I found out because, like I said, he doesn't lie to me. He came over to visit me one time and he was excessive sweating. And I asked him and he said yes.
And so you had said that Charlie had promised you that he would not return to New York. Was there a specific reason why you didn't want him to come back?
Yes, because I always thought that they were going to get at him.
When you say they, who do you mean specifically? Was it like previous people he had dealt with in prison?
No, not in prison. His so-called brother was. I just felt it in my heart, and I used to tell him, every time you come to New York to see your daughter, you give me anxiety. Promise me that you would never come back to New York.
And what was his reaction when you told him that?
He said, I'm sorry, I didn't know you felt that way. I don't want you to get sick and have those bad anxieties, even though he would just come for the weekend to stay with his daughter. But I just, in my heart, I felt that something was going to happen to him.
Do you think that that Charlie was scared, or because he didn't strike me as the type of person that would be?
No. As far as being scared, no.
But he cared about you so much that he didn't want you to have to worry.
Yes.
So you definitely were like his mom in that way, in the way that, you know, a child doesn't want their mother to worry about them, that they're okay.
That's correct.
After Charlie had passed away, I'm not sure if you are aware, but Joe had posted something to his page that a lot of people believed were to be an attack on Charlie in a way. You know, he had posted a picture of himself saying, "God don't like ugly." Now, when you saw that picture, was your immediate reaction the same, that you thought that he was talking about Charlie?
Of course he was, but it's okay. Because he's right. God doesn't like ugly. He's not too pretty, not too good on pretty either. And it's okay.
I think that for a lot of people, even though they knew that Charlie and Joe were not getting along towards the end of his life, or for many years, they did not expect that he would stoop to that level to do that.
Never.
You know, and a lot of people, when I had put out the video about that, because that was my interpretation, you know, and a lot of people were sending that to me. A lot of fans were like, he has to be, because it was too much of a coincidence. Like the news just broke out that Charlie had passed away, and for him to put that out there, yeah. So when I posted that, there were some fans that believed that it was a reach, that he wasn't really talking about him. But I just think that it was too much of a coincidence that he was.
He was, but it's okay. You know why? I've known Joe because I'm way older than Joe as a kid. And I always, every time Charlie was up to no good, he would call me. And I always used to tell Joe, you know what? It's called, you're going to see, Joe, the less you help me, you know, helping me meant putting him somewhere, not helping me financially. What goes around comes around. He never did anything. He would call me and say, Jocelyn, do this. Jocelyn, do that. Charlie's this. You know, you're the only person he listens to.
And so Joe was trying to get you to look out, to stop Charlie from doing crazy things, or what exactly?
He would say, Jocelyn, Charlie is out there with these guys that are no good, stuff like that.
And this was before he went to prison when he was 18 years old, right?
Right.
When you say that he had promised you that he was going to stay clean, can you detail, like, what was that conversation like?
Yes, I can. After doing so many years in prison, And instead of being handled him more carefully, he was living with me. Instead of helping keeping him clean, he was given a gun and a job, and of course he went back to drugs. Yes, he did. Instead of being watched, his was a gun, a truck, an old truck, and a gun.
Wait, who did this?
Uh, I don't know what.
Who gave him the gun?
The gun, a truck. Okay, that's what he was giving.
This was you said that when he was living with you that he was given this?
After the next day that he came out of prison after doing X amount of years, yes, that was his gift.
That was his gift from who?
Okay, from Jay, Jose, or whatever they call him.
And I believe you're talking about Joe. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, I am. I don't know why I have to act so. Yes, I I am the only one. Jocelyn Romero is the only one that was able to control Charlie. Okay.
So during the last years of your brother's life, he was still very brokenhearted over his relationship with Joe.
Yes,
I think that he made it very clear that he looked at Joe as a brother, like he genuinely loved him.
and he did.
And he did. And did you guys ever have any conversations about how he felt about Joe?
I did, and I said to him, "You know what? Let it go." And then I asked him when he wrote the book. I said, "If he comes to you," he goes, "You know what? All this is if Joe comes to me, I love him. I love him unconditionally." He did love Joe. Even to the end, he loved Joe.
Why do you think that he loved Joe so much?
Because they were brothers. They were the same age. They were brothers. They were brothers.
I feel like Charlie did so much to try to protect Joe, try to hold him down, whatever, it required. And when Charlie felt like he was tossed aside, like he was nothing, he just couldn't understand it. And it almost like tormented him,
It did. It did. It tormented him a lot. Especially, he came out after a long time. Then he went back.
Right. Did Charlie tell you about the conversation that Joe told him, like, I can't be around you? Like, what did he say specifically to you?
No, that conversation he never had with me. But I was kind of relieved because Charlie was more like a bodyguard. He used him.
Right.
Like I said, who does 18 years in prison and comes out and the next day you have a gun? And you have him collecting money. Who does that? Who does that?
When you say that he was collecting money for Joe, what specifically was he doing, collecting money from?
I don't know from, but it was people that owe him or people that didn't want to pay him. But that's what he handed him. And that's when I told Joe in front of Lorena, if my brother goes back to jail, I won't forgive you. Because Joe also respects me a lot. He has a lot of respect for me.
So you had this conversation with Joe in front of his wife, telling him, basically, you got my brother doing some dirty things, and if he ends up going back to prison, I won't forgive you because you're the reason why.
That is correct. And he did go back, like I said.
And this was after he had got out after like 12 years. Was that right? Something like that in that time. And when he came back out, do you think that the second time was Charlie a different person at that time? Was he changed? Was he willing to change his life?
Yes.
Okay. And that was at that point, that's when Joe told him that I couldn't be around you. Is that right?
But maybe a month after Charlie came out of prison from doing all those years, he got arrested. Hello. And he was out within 5 hours, still being on parole.
Wow.
Who does that? And when he said, Charlie called me up, he was scared because he was on parole. And he said, don't worry, Joe got this. Within 5 hours, my brother was still on parole. You get arrested, you're going back. 5 hours later, my brother was out.
And this was the second time that he had got out, right? This was after he had
No time. This
the
is
first
the first
time. Okay, so this is the first time. And so in your eyes, he was using Charlie for bad purposes, basically for his own greedy purposes, own selfish reasons, right?
That's correct.
And why do you think that Charlie was not able to see past that, to see that, hey, like maybe this guy really doesn't care about me?
He couldn't see past that. He couldn't.
Just the love was blinding him? Did you ever have any conversations with Charlie to tell him that, hey, Joe is using you?
I did. My husband did as well. Yes, I did.
And what was Charlie's reaction to that?
No, he's not. He was.
And so even with you, his basically the person that he loves more than anybody in this world telling him, that Joe is using you, he still couldn't believe it because he was that loyal to Joe.
That is correct.
One of the narratives that Joe tried to push was that Charlie lost his eye over drugs instead of defending Joe's honor.
That's a lie. That's a lie. That is a lie. When it happened, the next day I was there. That is a lie.
You were there visiting him?
Yes. The next day it happened because, again, I was called again. And again, I was back over there. He was in special hospital unit. Again, I was there. I was there, and he did lose it.
What was your immediate reaction when you found out that he lost his eye over that situation?
I couldn't believe it. Again, my nerves were a wreck.
Did you have a conversation with Joe about that situation?
No, he wouldn't pick up my calls.
He wouldn't pick up your calls. Wow.
He didn't even go visit him.
So you hear this this narrative that Joe puts out there. Who goes and visits people for 16 years and snowstorms and all this stuff?
Not true. He never. Yes, you know who does that? His sister, me, Jocelyn. Snowstorms, winter storms on buses. Yes, you're right. His sister does it. He didn't. Maybe twice a year, if that much.
Right, because the other terror squad members, I have heard them say that Joe would bring them to visit Charlie, but that was probably more in the beginning of the actual, or maybe the mid time of his prison stint.
No. Maybe twice a year towards the end when he was getting ready to come out because he had a plan for my brother.
Okay. So you must have been really upset because you've seen the video, right? You've seen the video of Joe saying that you lost your eye over those 3 bundles and not because.
That's not true. That is not true.
For you to watch Joe grow up, obviously you've seen him since a little kid, and did you ever imagine that him and Charlie would not be friends anymore?
No, never. You know how many times, even as a kid, because Charlie is short. I don't know if you ever met my brother. He's short.
No, I haven't.
He's short. He's maybe 5 feet or 5'1". And Charlie was like tough. Nor my sisters or I would say anything to him because he had no fear in him. He had no fear. You know how many times Joe used to get beat up in school? Countless. And who was there? Charlie.
So, and that was one of the things that Charlie kind of would speak about, was like laughing about the book of Jose and how the stories were so exaggerated, and that
It is. You know what? My two sisters and myself were all college grads. Okay? We took care of my mom. He did not pay anything. You know why? Because we were too proud. He never gave us anything, or his daughter. Never. He's a liar. It's all lies. He never took care of us. We all went to college. Okay. I'm a social worker at a hospital. My sister is a senior staff nurse at a hospital in Florida, and so is my other sister. So he's a liar. Never.
because I know that he's claimed that when Charlie got out of prison, he set him up with an apartment. He bought them the Hummer.
No, let me get this straight. The apartment was, I bought this apartment that I have now, and I gave Charlie my other apartment.
Wow.
Okay? He never set him up with an apartment. Never, ever. I gave him my apartment so he can have his privacy and he can bring his girls over or whatever. He never put him up. The Hummer, he gave him an old Cadillac.
Oh, so it wasn't even a
It was
Hummer.
white. No. And Charlie went and traded the Cadillac for the Hummer. And, okay?
Because I remember Charlie saying that he might have like paid a couple of thousand on the car or something, but he didn't pay for like the whole car like Joe was claiming.
That's the correct.
Why do you think that Joe has done this though? Like exaggerated the truth so much about your brother?
I don't know, but Joe needs to face me now. You know why? Because Joe also made me promises. Okay? He promised me that he would never turn his back on my brother. And I wish and I hope he hears this. As God is my witness, I wish. Because you know what I have for Joe? A can of mace. I'm going to empty it out on him. And I know in my heart that he is going to come to my door. In my heart, I feel it. And I'm ready for him. And this is why I really did this interview, because I'm so hurt inside with Joe. What does he think? Money can buy everything? No, it's not true. And I want to clear the air with him because he knows the truth. He knows the truth and he needs to stop lying. He really does.
Why do you think that he's going to come to your door?
Because I can feel it. I can feel it.
What do you think that he will talk to you about specifically?
About Charlie, how he missed him and how he was wrong.
So you think that he will admit to him being wrong, but in private, not in a public setting?
Of course not. Of course not.
Because I think that one of the things that is frustrating for fans is that the way that Joe acts is as if he's never done wrong. Like he's not shown him humility to show that, because even the best people, even good people make mistakes, right? We're humans. That's just what it is. And good people are still capable of doing really messed up things. But I think the frustrating thing is that Joe tends to never show any of that.
It's okay. It's okay. Karma, what goes around comes around. And I wish him nothing but the best. You know why? Because we don't wish bad on anyone. But it's called karma. What comes around goes around.
If you could say one thing to Charlie today, what would it be?
I don't know. Why did you leave me? Whoopi, why did you leave me? Whoopi, why did you leave me? That cry for him. I wake up sleeping, crying. It's all like a bad dream. I wish I woke up and it wasn't true. I wish that I would wake up and it was a joke.
I know that, we were trying to do this interview for a while now, and we just couldn't do it because I understand that you were still grieving, and I can, obviously you're still grieving today because you had such a
Yes,
great relationship with Charlie. And Charlie was just, he was quite the person, a really like a one of one. His personality was just just, you know, you just couldn't help but love him, love watching him too on YouTube. Like, I know a lot of people, they may have had an allegiance to Joe or claim to not like Charlie, but it's like you can't help but be entertained by him. His personality was larger than life, all the catchphrases that he had, and everything. Um, what what was your favorite memory with Charlie?
when he came out the first time, I think I was turning 40. He gave me a surprise party.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, because we know that Charlie's name is not really Charlie. He once told me that,
No, it's
right?
not.
And he told me not to divulge what it is, though.
He was so
Yeah,
embarrassed. But my mom didn't know any English and she pronounced the name wrong in English. And they gave him this weird name. Yeah.
right, right. And he would tell me as a kid and everything how he was very embarrassed about it, and
Yeah.
that's really funny.
Did he tell you how he got the name Charlie?
I don't remember, but I know that he did tell me though. Can you remind me?
Because my mom would cut his hair real short like Charlie Brown.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's
And
right.
they started making fun of him. They would call him Charlie Brown.
Right.
And that's how he got the name Charlie. I named my son, I only have one son after him. Not the first name, the middle name.
Wow. See, that goes to show you how much you really loved him,
Yeah,
and how much you cherished his relationship, your relationship with him. Um, one of the things the fans really wanted to donate to the family, to have a GoFundMe and everything, but instead you told the fans to donate to Prosperity House.
that is
Right.
correct.
His relationship with Prosperity House, it was a very good thing for him. You believe that they helped save his life?
Yes, he did. Um, he loved helping people. He just liked it. And a lot of times I would call him and he was there and he was like, call me later because I'm doing my Bible classes. Or he was talking to the guys about, doing Bible classes.
Right. That's the thing, is that it always bothered me that people held on to his past because of his substance abuse, and they couldn't see him as more than that. So when people would comment bad things about him, in the comments, I would always defend him and say, he's been clean for a very long time. He's out in the community, prison mentality. He's helping people. I don't understand like how you can't let that go to allow somebody to really be more, he's really trying to change things and do things for the better. Um, and I always told your brother, I always told him, I said that I'm so proud of you, because not everyone can turn their life around, you know, and he was able to do that, and he was very happy making the content and everything on YouTube. But I know genuinely what he cared about more than anything was the work he was doing in the community. He
That
genuinely
is
loved doing that, and he was very happy doing that. um I feel like Charlie was just a very special person. I just, I miss him all the time too, and I take a look at our messages in our DM, and and sometimes I just wish that a notification would come up and it would be him
Mm.
again, yelling "We international" or something. It's it's just such a loss. Like even my family even knew about Charlie because I would talk about him, and then I would tell them, oh, I'm interviewing his sister, and they're like, oh wow, because I did care about Charlie a lot, and
He,
it's
he was my
yeah
life.
I I wanted to make sure that I was the person to break the news because I knew that I would do it the right way to really humanize him, to show that he was so much more than Fat Joe stories. I know a lot of people watched him for that, but he was more than that. And if you really listen to what he was saying, talking about changing your mindset and changing your life and doing all of these things, and so it was really important for me to show the people that he was so much more. And I'm so grateful to be able to speak with you today, because it's just he meant a lot to me as well.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm glad if you like another interview, it'll be a while because, like I said, I'm in so much pain,
Right.
but they
um
will
is,
be.
is there anything that else you want to say to the fans before we go?
I appreciate the support, the love they have for him. And he was drug free for many years.
Yeah, definitely. I can't imagine how that felt for you, that you're already going through the loss of somebody so important to you. And then there's people throwing dirt on his name about why he passed to begin with.
And it's true. And if Joe ever contacts me, because I know in my heart he will be the first to know.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. I appreciate you.